that journey as well.
To all the staff from Speakers Institute, you guys have been really supportive and really, really lovely and encouraging. But to everybody else, for all of your honesty and your courage for stepping up here and just giving all, because I've learned so much from every single one of you, and it's just been really, really good.
I just wanted to 6 years looking after little kids, and this is the first course I've ever done. And stand my mind, expectations, and thank you today. That was brilliant, and me the confidence to have that before, because you know when you leave for a while and you come back, it's all a bit dodgy. So thank you,
Sam. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That has been absolutely awesome. I've learned a hell of a lot today, and I really feel like we're all improving. So thank you so much. It's been really awesome.
I wish everyone all the best on the course. I think it's a wonderful course. And Sam, you've created an amazing business, but I also want to congratulate the people you've got working underneath you, because it wouldn't be that great if you didn't have all this wonderful resource. And I congratulate them for supporting you. It's excellent.
I'd actually just like to thank Sam and the team so much for everything you've done, but I'd really like to thank everybody else. I have learnt so much from all of you. It's just been so exhilarating.
To be quite honest, to a certain extent, I like the way how she speaks slowly. Why? Because
I'm so eager one of you, the best study very much.
So honest, I've been doing courses and 350. This was worth every cent. I'm very, very impressed with the level of knowledge of the coaches, and they just kept offering gold nugget after gold nugget. Definitely was worth every minute as well, so thanks.
Hi guys, I just wanted to say my work relies on face-to-face speaking at conferences around the world, so investing in this course is really about looking to the future, so it's really an investment in the long term. It's been a really, really professionally put together course, so commendations all round to all of you.
From the age of 9 years old, I have been fascinated with success. The day I left school, I could not read, spell or write. I had no idea what I wanted to be or could be. All I did know was I had a burning desire to create success. I just didn't know where to start or how to achieve it. My only option was to get a job at McDonald's. For 18 years, my desired success mission was to own my own McDonald's stores. For me to achieve this, I needed to be an outstanding performer and create wealth of over $1 million, debt-free. I achieved my desired success mission 3 years ago. I currently own 2 McDonald's stores that produce over $8 million in revenue per annum. For many years, I have had a deep sense that my story, message and knowledge was meant to be heard by more than just the people within my life. I knew I had to find the right person to help me achieve this mission. Sam showed me the power of stories, the ability to be more vulnerable, for how to systemize 20 years of leadership, business and success knowledge. If you have a story, knowledge that you want to share and add, Sam is your man.
guys, Sam Cawthorne here, CEO and founder of Speakers TV. Lean in where you can, feedback, and we are really excited about your success. And don't forget, is yet to come.
The 20ness being on and through those changes I discovered good health and good fitness, but I also discovered that I could go beyond anything that I'd felt and experienced before. And so I went on, started helping coaching men, started training men, started working one-on-one with men and guide them along the same journey that I took. but it just wasn't enough. I wasn't making enough impact. I wanted to make a greater impact on the world. And so I needed to find a coach, a mentor, a framework that I could develop my communication skills so that my story could get out to a wider audience. Once I got the experience through a curriculum and a framework, and it really changed the way and gave me the confidence to share my story in a way that I knew it made impact with other people. So now I've got the confidence in sharing my story. I'm now also writing a book on personal development. I'm also now going out and working with men's health groups as a men's health advocate and sharing the message of what it takes to find good health and good fitness.
Welcome to Speakers TV. In the world, there is a reason why you've joined here on this amazing Wednesday. Guys, in this episode, we're going to bring to you some of the best speakers, some of the best influencers, and not only that, we're also showcasing a number of our students who have gone on to either write best-selling books, to be on TEDx stages, or ultimately get them to share their journey on how they made it from an ordinary life through to knowing exactly what their story is and then ultimately learning how to get that story out there. We truly believe in you, and I'm really glad you're tuning in to our Wednesday episode of Speakers TV. We'll see you on the other side. Demian Coorey is an award-winning physicist, former chief analyst for Citibank Australia, and the only vegetarian head of production development at Barbecues Galore. I like that one. His accomplishments range from earning a master's in finance to owning a video and animation studio. From heading a rigid Australian standards committee for winning a New South Wales Arts Council award for acting, from getting lost in his library of over 3,000 books, to being one of the last people allowed to climb the iconic Three Sisters in Western Sydney. Ladies and gentlemen, speaking on the winning against the machine, please put your hands together for Mr. Demian Coorey!
Nice work. Hey y'all, how you doing? I want you to think back, probably for a number of you, it's a number of years, for when you first started your speaking journey. And I want you to remember those first sensations you had when you first started working out what your message is. Do you remember that? And you remember, you started thinking, well, this sounds really good. This means a lot to me. This really resonates with me. But do you remember also the apprehension you felt, that next level of apprehension? Does anybody else care? Remember that? I really like a lot. Ask me about it. They sound, they say short on the same journey. I felt that apprehension a lot. Does anybody else care? Will anybody else listen to me? The fact that we're all on the same journey, just maybe at different levels. Like, do you remember seeing a 10 years younger Sam being coached by Michael? I mean, wasn't that one of the best videos ever? We are so complete. And that, realistically, is probably the most important thing I can tell you. When I first started thinking, okay, this is good. That was an evening, a few years ago. I was at dinner with some friends. And, there was 8 of us. I knew 3 of them already. 4 of them I just met that night. It was dinner at Bondi. And there's me at the head of the table. I don't know why I was... They didn't know I was Middle Eastern. All I was going to do was haggle. Right. Now, this is towards the end of the evening, when dinner's finished and it was no longer a conversation around the whole table. It was just like how the conversation breaks up into a lot of little conversations, often between two people. And it was during that time then when one of the guys I just met that night, the guy just there, I'd only met him that night. His name is Rory. Now at this moment he was a lot closer to me. I was at the head and he was like 2 people away. And I remember him leaning forward and turning to me and say, "Demian, as a futurist, how do you think we're going to go with robots? Are we all going to be replaced by intelligent machines?" And okay, I answered him. I started a conversation. I said, "Look, this is something I still believe." I said, "No, you are less likely to be replaced by robots. You are very likely to be working alongside one." Okay, and that started a conversation. But the big deal is what happened the moment he asked that question. All he said, he leaned forward and said, "Demian, as a futurist, how do you think we'll go with robots?" And that moment, the rest of the conversation stopped. Everybody leaned in and the eyes of the table were upon me. And then as I started describing, I noticed conversations in the other tables stopped. And people started leaning in, like... And then the waiter walks past. Like, there he is at the back. Seriously, by the ending. And I started to reflect that this is something big, that we have a fear and a fascination with the future. That we fear being replaced by intelligent machines, and even if we don't believe that our own job, we think maybe our kids. Even if we ourselves are untouched, lose their jobs, then the whole economy is affected. That means we all go down. Well, here is something that I firmly believe, that my initial instinct was absolutely correct. That every permutation of every analysis I have done has shown me that we will be okay. We will work alongside intelligent machines, but not only will we will be better for the experience. We will be an improved, evolved species. But that's in the long term. In the short term, it's kind of not looking so good. That a lot of that fear and that apprehension is completely understandable. And it's understandable because we completely misunderstand the nature of the changes that are happening right now. I keep on hearing a lot of business leaders, a lot of speakers, a lot of futurists especially, talk about we live in the most disruptive time in the history of civilization. And let me tell you, I'm sitting on the back thinking, no, we're not. They're saying, we're seeing tidal waves of change. I'm like, no, we're not. They say these things as if they're just going to be accepted, and they offer no proof. Like, can I just show of hands here? Who has been at a boot camp, I've been coaching, or at a one-day intensive where I've been there, right? So you would know, thank you, you would know that I do not, if you've got something controversial to say and where the evidence part of the authority communication framework is important, I do not allow you to just wave your hands and say, evidence shows that, and leave it at that. I'm down the back saying, you're saying evidence shows, quote your sources. I'm one of these really annoying critics at the back of a studio, or back of a hall, listening to a speaker, and I've got them leaning right back, and I'm saying, yeah, you think that? Show your work on Einstein. And so I thought, okay, I'm before anything a researcher. Yeah, I speak, yeah, I train, yeah, I write. But before anything, and I thought, okay, I'm going to put this to the test. I'm going to do my own research, and I want you to be part of this. This is what very simple investigative research looks like. I thought, let's compare two periods. I want to compare our own time I'm going to compare from 20 back half that includes all of our lives, or at least most of it. The last 50 years, that covers all of our lives, and for a lot of us, most of our lives. That's our time. But I want to compare that with the time of our parents and grandparents, where I believe they lived through one of the most disruptive times, that previous 50 years. I want you to look with me. And you tell me which of these periods of 50 years, our life or the lives of our parents and grandparents, who saw the greatest disruption? And you know the interesting thing? Our parents and grandparents never complained. You know the term future shock was invented in our era. Let's have a look at the type of car we drive now. And by the way, we're going to do this really fast because it's more fun. That's the car we drive now. How much development has there been in 50 years? Yeah, a bit. But look at the cars they drove in the previous 50 years. And that's not showing the real picture. The real difference is that hardly anybody drove. 5% of families had a car. During our parents' and grandparents' generation, cars became a thing which allowed the growth of megacities which absolutely transformed economies. Let's have a look at the planes. In 1970, the Boeing 747 was about 3 years old. Now, depending on what airline you fly, if you're flying internationally, what might you be flying? Oh, look at that, a 747. How much development was there in the previous 50 years? Biplane, anybody? And again, you weren't allowed to ride on that. International travel, we transformed the export industry, became a thing in our parents' generation. What sort of phones? That's the phone we've got now. That's the phone we had in 1970. Okay, mobile telephony was disruptive, but calling landlines, which most calls are to landlines, that has hardly changed. The underlying technology is now VoIP or whatever, but it's exactly the same. 1920, and hardly anybody had one. The world was connected with telephone during our parents' and grandparents' generation. And just business, because at the beginning of that period, you had to write a letter. Radios, yeah, still one of those. 1970, okay, quite different. But look at that, 1920. During our parents' and grandparents' generation, broadcast technology was developed. Look at the movies we're looking at now, compared to 50 years ago. Now, there's been some development. Visual effects was a thing. But 50 years before that, there wasn't even sound. And in fact, the language of visual storytelling was introduced and developed during that transformed the way we see the world. Television, that's now, that was then. Quite different. What about 50 years before? Oh, that's right, wasn't invented. And there has been, in my opinion, no disruption greater in the 20th century that affected the common person like television. Not only changed marketing, not only changed visual storytelling and entertainment, but transformed, and not necessarily in a good way, family life. Came of these. Price of electricity. Just before 1920, electricity became affordable, and so the electric grid was developed during our parents' and grandparents' time. You think Airbnb is a big disruption? How about the introduction of electricity? You want to see what something else that wasn't around in 1920? The State of Israel. Completely upended Middle Eastern dynamics. Not only that, but during our parents' and grandparents' time, the end of colonialism in Africa, the subcontinent, and Southeast Asia. Some of those disruptions, I mean, this was amazing. Not only transformed the international economic order, but freed the lives of over 2 billion people. The Depression, during our parents' and grandparents' era. 8% is considered a recessive unemployment rate now. Then 33%. The Second World War, the most ferocious war in the history of civilization, and the spectre of the atomic bomb, the Cold War. If there's any nerds in your table, he or she will have already whispered Schrödinger's equation to nobody in particular, the discovery of the atom. And in my opinion, the discovery of the atom during our parents' and grandparents' era was second only to the development of the wheel. in its long-term effect. There's been a lot of other scientific discoveries during that time. We think biomedicine has been transformed during the last 50 years, but nothing compares to the discovery of penicillin, which has saved between 100 and 200 million lives. There's never been anything like it since. And the discovery of this, you would know it better as DNA. During our parents' and grandparents' time, the genetic code was uncovered. Transistors, which made computing possible. We redefined what we believe is humanly possible during our parents' and grandparents' time. We escaped the Earth's orbit and the greatest social revolution of all, the contraceptive pill. And by the way, robots were already replacing humans in the 1960s. Do not tell me that this is the most disruptive era ever. Our parents and grandparents saw so much more disruption. But it makes you wonder then. I mean, they didn't complain at all. So why do we feel so insecure? Turns out, it's just that we misunderstand the nature of change. There have been some important disruptions. 3 in the last 50 years. 1980s, beginning of low-cost computing, personal computers for everybody. 1990s, the connecting of the world's computers into the internet. And finally, in the 2000s, the organizing of the world's information, with search engines being the GPS of the internet. And what that meant was that everybody can now be part of change. Back in our parents' and grandparents' generation, change was like the Genesis description of creation. The gods of big business, big research, big government, they created change and gave it down to us, and it was good, and we could not affect it. But now, everybody can be part of change. You want to create a business? In the old days, it cost hundreds of thousands. Now, you just set yourself up. You want to get your word out to the world? You want to create a difference by writing? Before you had to crawl to a publisher and beg. Now you just publish it. You want to bring down a despotic and tyrannical government? You no longer need to hide a printing press in a basement and hire people to distribute leaflets. No, you just get a free Twitter account. Now change is part of everybody. Everybody can be part of change, and the result is a problem. Because now there is so many little changes. Now we are constantly seeing an unrelenting barrage of small shifts. And that is the difference between change then and change now. You see, in our parents' and grandparents' generation, there was huge shifts, but then there was a break in between. Imagine being on the beach. And there's waves, and okay, you get used to the wave, but then you can stop. There's a space between the waves, you can recalibrate, rebalance, and you're ready. Now, it's not like a series of big waves, it is like a constant turbulence, and we feel disoriented. We never feel like we can find our grounding. And because so many individual people are involved in change, observation number 2, every change has a learning curve. And that is really annoying. Every change, we have to learn something. Like in our grandparents' television, the very first television they ever had. No learning curve. You plug it in, turn it on, everybody can do that. You had 2 knobs. One knob, which clicked the thing on, and then it became a volume control. Then click, click, click. A couple of channels, that's it, no learning curve. Now, everything has a learning curve, and it is really annoying. Sarah and I, my partner Sarah and I, bought a coffee machine, espresso makers. Now, all I want to do is make coffee in the morning. It's got a learning curve. I remember putting it on the table, and and trying to work out, and I'm not talking about the learning curve involved in the art of the perfect espresso, the coarseness of the grind, the amount, the pressure, the time, everything like that. No, I'm talking about getting coffee into the cup. It's got a learning curve. I was walking around this thing, trying to work out where to put the water in. I was thinking, maybe I'll just pour it over the top, hope it sucks in from somewhere. I'm looking at it thinking, hang on, wait there. Like perspective time, I can split atoms. This thing shouldn't beat me. Ladies and gentlemen, as an Australian male, I don't feel real good about admitting to this. I looked at the instructions. All right, okay, I said it. Thank you. I looked at the instructions. And thank you for not judging me. You are my people. But let me tell you, it was a little bit different at home. Sarah walks past, see me reading the instructions. You get, and I'm looking back at her, and she goes, okay, it's okay. I don't judge people. I said, you just did. People, my dad, when he was alive and able, he made coffee for my mum every morning. For over 50 years, he made coffee for my mum. And I want to do the same for Sarah. It shouldn't have been that difficult! So, this constant turbulence of change, and every change has a learning curve, and the is that we can say goodbye forever to a feeling of mastery. We will never have that feeling again where we know what we're doing, we know what we're about. We will always feel like we haven't quite got it, and that makes us feel disoriented and that little bit insecure. But the third observation I like. Change is forcing us to be better human beings. See, computers can now do a lot of the simple stuff. They can do, in fact, more complicated stuff, the mid-level decision making, pattern matching, analysis. See, in the same way that every major shift has caused and driven us as human beings to lift our game, the same thing is happening for the first time in a long time. When beasts of burden was first introduced thousands of years ago, we were released from the drudgery of huge physical work. Then when machines started being introduced, we had to become a little bit more skilled in what we do, because the machines in those days were very blunt. In the Industrial Revolution, the machines were capable of finer control, and so we had to develop even further into what human beings are capable of. And now machines, intelligent machines, are encroaching on what it is to be human. The easy analytical stuff is being looked after, which means we need to become a little more creative. I'm going to describe just how possible it is to become a more highly evolved human being, because that's it. We have two parts of our brain. Now, often we call them the left part brain and the right brain, but it doesn't matter where exactly they are. But we can call it the analytical function and the creative function. Now, I've got two people who are going to join me here. First of all, I want to call up Edwin. Come on, Edwin. Edwin is from a Singapore tribe. Come on, take a seat, my friend. Now, Edwin represents the left side of our brain, the analytical brain. Now, he's smart, he's good looking, he's reliable, but like older brothers in the family, traditionally older brothers, they're not bullies. He is not a bully, but can I describe him as a little bit dominating? Just thinks he's got it all. And now, let's call up Emily. Come on up, Emily, give her a hand. Emily represents the right brain, the creative brain. So here we have older brother, the analytical brain. Here we have little sister, the creative brain. And remember, they're parts of the same brain, so they naturally work together on each function. But you notice that for the last 2,500 years, the whole time since Aristotle, Western civilization in particular has focused on the analytical function. And so no matter what, the left brain believes,
I've got this.
he's got this. So if you want something done,
I've got this.
yeah, you want something organised,
I've got this.
you want something, you want an explanation of something,
I've got this.
if you want to write a story,
I've got this.
a story, left brain,
I've got this.
because the left brain has so many patterns, and the moment it sees that it recognises what's going on,
I've got this.
you're feeling a little bit ignored, little sister? There's a reason for that. Because for 2,500 years, we have ignored the creative parts of our brain. It is there. It is there. And every piece of research conforming to every rigor of scientific analysis that I have seen says that it is just waiting. So let's have a look at this. I'm going to set you a function, a task. On the screen there, I'd like you to draw that chair. Now, just that chair. I want you to copy this just draw. You don't have to write over your head. What? It's a drawing.
I've got this.
It's a drawing.
I've got this.
Isn't it amazing? The left brain has a pattern.
I got this.
But you know what? Drawing belongs on the creative side of the brain. Holy hell, is annoying. And you know the result? When the left brain takes over, the result is crap. Yeah. And it's amazing because it is the analytical brain that is guiding the hand, and the result is crap. So let's change it up a bit. I'd like you now to draw this. Yay! Time to shine, little sister.
I have nothing.
You've got nothing.
I've got nothing.
Because you've got upside down chair. The right brain. Who's got this now?
Time to shine.
It's time to give her a hand, ladies and gentlemen. It's your time to shine. Your time to shine, little sister. All we had to do was out of. In fact, all of creative thinking is simply giving the analytical brain a problem that it just can't handle. You've heard the term invention, necessity is the mother of invention. That's where it comes from. Ladies and gentlemen, can you give our two participants a hand? Nailed it! Thank you very much. Now, why is that? I want you to imagine the brain as stretching out. When we are first born, that layer of sand is completely smooth. It is glassy smooth. There are no impressions on it, other than the instincts that we are born with, like the sucking the instinct, the grabbing instinct, that you know. But other than that, there are no impressions. But then the moment we first emerge, our very first impressions, sensations, in that first microsecond of our conscious awareness in the outside world, it is like a handful of marbles get thrown across the surface of the sand, forming tiny little tracks. And then a microsecond later, another handful of marbles thrown across the sand, and they form tracks. And as time goes on, more and more marbles get thrown across the sand, more tracks. And as repeated experiences, whatever your unique life is about, and the repeated experiences, tracks become deeper. If you don't have experiences, you don't get tracks there. But if you have repeated experiences, those tracks become deeper and wider. So that by the time you become older, some of those tracks are so deep and so wide, if an experience goes anywhere near them, it falls into that track. Which is why when you're explaining something to someone, they continually try and compare it and make it something that they already aware of. Found that? Like that. All of creative thinking involves getting the marbles out of those tracks. All of it involves finding a way of disrupting existing patterns. You see, our problem is that we think that we're either creative or we're not. We're either an ideas person or we're not. That we're like 80% of people, this is basically analytic, love routine, and new ideas are for a select few who are born with this gift of idea creation. I have shown unambiguously that that is not the case, that everyone can learn this. I have taught accountants, chief executives, receptionists, programmers, analysts to come up with new ideas forward as adding up a column of numbers. It is simply a forgotten part of our life, but it can be woken up. That is evolution. We are being called upon to become better versions of ourselves. And I want you to understand what is happening here in terms of a variation I use of Maslow's hierarchy. It's a lot of hierarchy of needs. Well, I don't use a pyramid as a stairway to the cosmic eternity. Down the bottom, there is survival and security. And quite frankly, the first two observations are sending us down there. We feel insecure, we go into survival mode. We're never sure of ourselves. We're always learning. We never feel like we're on top of it. We go into survival mode. But we have a decision to make. Because at the top, or towards the top, is our ultimate self, what Maslow called self-actualization. It is reaching in to our deepest self and becoming more of what our Maker intended as a human being. No longer a beast of burden, no longer a machine, no longer doing routine, but rather our creative, connecting, most spiritual, best self. And that is the decision of our own evolution. Let me tell you what this decision looks like. Tell you about my dad. Can I have a chair up here? I might use a chair to tell this. I was still an undergraduate at university back in the early 80s. And I was visiting home. Of course, I'm a good Lebanese boy, and often I'd go home and have the kibbeh and the tabbouleh and I remember I was staying over one night because I was at New South Wales University and I was visiting my mum and dad's home in Elwood and Sydney. And I remember I was finishing kind of late, but I thought I should be able to do this without having to pull an all-nighter. It was 10 to 10, and I remember Tuesday night, 10 to 10, the lights went out. And I thought, great, a blackout. Remember those of you around in the 80s, remember we used to have a lot of blackouts? I was like, oh, blackout. And I remember going to the curtain and looking out to see how many houses in the street have been blacked out. Because if there's a lot of houses, it might take a while. If not so many, then it won't take as long. There were no other houses in the street blacked out. Just then, my dad walked in with a candle. Now, you've got to understand my dad. He was such a good guy. I mean, he was strong, he was together, he was funny in his own mind. And he was a World War II hero. He was a long-range navigator in World War II in the Royal Australian Air Force. And those long drops, like 24-hour missions, the average life expectancy for those crews, about 18 missions. My dad flew 43. He came in holding a candle, sat down, asked me to sit down next to him, put the candle on the desk, and proceeded to tell me that the clothing business for the last 10 years had failed. And he was unable to pay the electricity. That was my dad. My dad who survived what I described earlier as in the history of civilization, survived the modern fashions changed, manufacturing methods changed. And the worst part is, my dad knew about the changes. He saw them coming, but he believed he had time. We think, people, that change is happening too fast. No, it's not. Change is not happening too fast. Slow enough for us to think we can ignore it. But the story does not end there. My dad spent 2 years in the wilderness, as you got to do, but emerged. Many of the ideas that I talk about in my keynotes on innovation thinking, about becoming a better human being, I learned from my dad's experience. 10 years after this, my dad, when most other clothing businesses went to the wall, my dad, 12 years later, retired at 74 on his own terms. He chose evolution. One of the things he did, he gave the brain a problem it didn't know how to solve. What if we had no sewing machines? What if we had no, because 2 of them break down one day, and he thought, okay, what if we have none? Now what do you do? And he started thinking, the left brain, the analytical, consider that. You've heard of Airbnb and Uber, using people's own assets to create value. My dad was doing that in the 80s. He was driving offcuts and work around to hundreds of people around the suburbs of Sydney who owned a sewing machine. My dad was the Uber of the clothing industry. That's what happens when you choose evolution. See, the difference is, down here you reminisce about yesterday. Up here you can appreciate today because you're not worried about tomorrow. Down here is scarcity. We hang on to what we've got. We preserve. But here is about abundance. But most importantly, as an evolved self, we can honestly say, no matter what, I am okay. Things are going to change. But I am okay. That maybe my job will be gone because that's what happens, a natural turning over of the economic soil. But I am okay. That maybe I'll have to shift country. Sure, it'll be difficult, but I am okay. Change is uncomfortable. But let me tell you this, that the biggest determinant of premature aging is comfort. That no matter what, I am okay. People, if we are worthy of our humanness, we should not be doing the work of a machine. If your job is being replaced by a machine, I may sound harsh, but may I suggest to you, it should be replaced. And you take responsibility for your own evolution and bring yourself higher. If you are worthy of your humanness, I can tell you both in theory and in practice that no human can ever be replaced by a machine that is conceived by any group of mortals. That we must take responsibility for our own evolution. And if there has ever been a time in the long continuity of human history where we were called upon to decide between reaching up to our higher self or facing a slow, grinding descent into irrelevance, that time is now. It is now. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Demian, and it's been my pleasure to spend this time with you.
Sam Cawthorne here, CEO and founder of Speakers Institute. If you give me 60 seconds of your time, I'll show you how to set up an online webinar in 48 hours while growing your authentic followers to tens of thousands, and then teach you how to package your IP so they buy your programs online using what we call influence on video. What this means is you talk to camera, share your value, and then stack your offerings and create urgency in a way that makes it so irresistible that they click the button and purchase your high ticket sale. Talk with any of our clients globally, and I promise you will not find anyone that does what we do. All you have to do is to create an online event, share your ideas, and then stack your offerings just like this. And here's the big secret. Everyone is online right now searching for people just like you to help them learn things that you already know. There are people doing it right now, but they probably don't know as much as you. So right now is your chance to learn how to sell online, and my influence on video formula is easy to use and foolproof for anyone to master. Just recently, I did a 1.5 hour video online to only 40 people, and at the end, 10 of them bought my $4,000 product, all by one click of the button. It was seamless. So if you want me to show you how to influence on video, stack your offerings that make it irresistible, learn my exact script so you can come across authentic and real, and create urgency so then they buy immediately, then click on the link below and join my free masterclass.
Share, how good the feeling was after completing the session, and I think the feedbacks were just too good. So that is forcing me to think beyond. I think it was pretty linear thinking earlier, and now it is pretty diversified. So that is very helpful.
Thank you, Charlene, Christiane, and Sam, for obviously the benefit and the inspiration you've given to so many of us, and to all the participants, because I think for me personally, this is the first time I've felt that I've been in such a safe space to be vulnerable and to make mistakes. And I know that a lot of us have shared some really traumatic events in our life, possibly for the first time publicly. So that's just been a really huge thing. So thank you for everyone for opening up, and for people to open up and be authentic.
I'd like to firstly acknowledge you, Sam. Thank you so much for instituting the Speakers Institute, and all of the lovely people who've attended today. I think they've done an absolutely wonderful job. I think all of their stories are worthy of stage presence. I think you'll all go very far.
I just wanted to say, being out of the workforce for 6 years, looking after little kids, and this is the first course I've ever done, and it was astounding. It blew my mind. It was beyond my expectations. And thank you, Kate, for the feedback today. That was brilliant, and it's given me the confidence to back myself, because I didn't have that before. Because when you leave for a while and you come back, it's all a bit dodgy. So thank you.
And it was really an experience which I was looking for, to give that push, the last push which is needed, because I'm very low on execution. So your story and your message gave me that push which I really needed. So thank you very much, and also to the fellow participant for bearing with me.
Thank you, everyone. You've all inspired me today, and I want to thank you, Sam, for putting this on, and Christiane and Charlene inspired me to come through conversations we had, and so I'd like to thank her in particular, and got a lot out of it. So thank you, everyone, and thanks for all the lovely comments.
First of all, I would like to say thank you, massive thank you to every single one of you. It was a great company. Proximity is power. I'm overwhelmed with all the love and energy and everything else. I've learned so much. And by this sheer circumstances, by now, that I'm sitting at home and I actually can do it. I'm blown away that I'm actually doing it. It's amazing.
And I really want to thank you, Sam, for this amazing course.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank every single one of you, especially you, Sam, and all of the mentors as well. There can be at times where we're alone. We think we're the only ones, we feel like we're the only ones going through that, and to share would be to burden each other. But in a space like this, it actually brings us closer together. So thank you very much for sharing all your stories, and thank you for the opportunity.
I'd actually just like to thank Sam and the team so much for everything you've done, but I'd really like to thank everybody else. I have learnt so much from all of you. It's just been so exhilarating. I'm so excited for each and every one of you because it's just the growth in such a short space of time has been phenomenal. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It has been absolutely awesome. I've learned a hell of a lot today, and I really feel like we're all improving. So thank you so much. It's been really awesome.
I wish everyone all the best on the course. I think it's a wonderful course. And Sam, you've created an amazing business. But I also want to congratulate the people you've got working underneath you, because it wouldn't be that great if you didn't have all this wonderful resource. And I congratulate them for supporting you. It's excellent.
Thank you very much. All the feedbacks were golden for me. I learned a lot. Plus, how I should not try to put I should not try to put all the information in those 6 minutes. I should let the audience absorb what I'm trying to convey. They should absorb my story. And, so as the energy level should fluctuate properly at the right moment. So thank you very much for that.
So I want to say, look, I've forever been doing courses and programs. I've probably spent over $350,000 in my life. This was worth every cent. I'm very, very impressed with the level of knowledge of the coaches. And they just kept offering gold nugget after gold nugget. Definitely was worth every minute as well. Yeah, I really want to thank the coaches. And I've noticed a difference in everyone as well over the last couple of days as well. So thanks.
Guys, I just wanted to say my work relies on face-to-face workshops, speaking at conferences around the world. So investing in this course is really about looking to the future. So it's really an investment in the long term. It's been a really, really professionally put together course. So commendations all round to all of you.
To all the staff from Speakers Institute, you guys have been really supportive and really, really lovely and encouraging. But to everybody else, for all of your honesty and your courage for stepping up here and just giving all, because I've learned so much from every single one of you, and it's just been really, really good. Thank you.
My name is Sarah Cordiner, and a long time ago I was one of the proteges. Now back then I had absolutely no idea where I was going to go. I was an expert in my field, but I was working very much in the corporate space. I also had no followers on any social media accounts. I had no email list. I had no people anywhere on a database that was out there in the public market. But I knew that I needed and wanted to get out, get online and make a difference to the world. And I knew that the only way I'd be able to do that is to go out and start speaking, putting myself out there as an individual. And it was really confronting because there's all these kind of things that we go through. Will people like me? Will people engage with me? Will anyone even care about what I have to say? Will people mock me? Will people criticize me? Will I be torn down by my competitors or trolls? So I had all of these worries, like everyone else does, not knowing where I was going to start. You know, do I start with the logo, the website, the message, the thing, the branding, the story? It's all very, very overwhelming. So I want to reassure you guys that I was absolutely there. After going on Sam's program, I have gone on to win multiple awards. I have now got over 20,000 students in 146 countries. I have been listed by the Huffington Post as one of the top 50 must-follow female entrepreneurs. I've published 12 books, 5 of which have gone to international #1 bestseller. I recently was headhunted by a university and now hold the record for being the youngest university director in Australian history. And I have done all of this from working in the spare bedroom in my house. I now have a multi-million-dollar education company with children running around. And one of the things that I really want to make clear to other people is that everyone can do this. Every single person. I had no special starting point. I had no investors. I've never had anyone give me money. I absolutely have just started on the corner of a kitchen table with nothing but a dream, a drive, and an ambition. And that is the only thing you need to get started.
a bit afraid of speaking before a strange crowd. Learn more body language, expressions, and all that goes around along with speaking in public. I believe that the world is interconnected, that there's no dichotomy. Everything is never mutually exclusive. It's a challenge, the challenge behind it, and to actually discover yourself in the end through all these challenges, you'll be a stronger, more powerful person.
Darren, one thing about you is that, you know, with this brand new fresh idea that you have, you go out there, you do the research, etc., and now your next chapter is to be the influencer. And you're on a journey, and you're an exciting journey. I believe in you, Darren. Surround yourself with the right proximity, and you will find yourself over the next 3 to 5 years be the influencer in your space, be a global presence of people flocking to you and your product and your service. It's going to be very exciting.
This is the Celebrity Authority Show. Please welcome your host, Sam Coorey.
Here we are again. I'm excited that we have Adam Luckin in the studio here in Sydney. Thank you.
I'm so excited to be here.
That's good. Hey, Adam, now you're a specialist in online design, online creativity, online websites, etc. Tell us a little bit more about how important is online.
Well, it's critical these days to have a really great presence online. It's, you know, we used to have storefronts for our businesses, and that you'd view you, but now everybody views you based on your online presence.
Absolutely. As soon as I find a company or whatever, you're going to look online and see who is this person, whether it's social media or website or whatever. Is that right?
That's correct.
Look, I want to unpack this in a moment, but Adam, tell us a little bit more about your story. Why? Where did you start? Why are you so obsessed about online in general?
Oh, well, many years, but that really didn't work for me.
That was based here in Australia?
Yes, I got it from RMIT. I got my, yep.
Very good.
And then I did that for about 5 years, but then I travelled overseas and spent 3 years in England, and then another 20 years in the US.
Wow. Whereabouts in US?
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Beauty.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool there. There I moved into sales engineering. So I worked for a company for 14 years over there as a sales engineer. And I was passionate about having a relationship with my audience, but not my audience, my clients.
Yeah.
And that really built a lot of business. It was incredible working in the States, you know, from a sales perspective and a marketing perspective and an interactive perspective with my customers. And I managed to get be very successful there. It was an incredible experience. The Americans are incredible people. They're very interesting. They build people up, and you know, it felt really great when I was in the States. And then I returned back to Australia back in 2013. See, when I was in the States, I was fortunate enough to get married and had a beautiful child. Unfortunately, my wife then died when my son was 2, and so I brought my son up since he was 2, and now he's 16, beautiful boy.
So Adam, can we just go back?
Yeah.
How did your wife die? Would you mind if I ask?
No, not a problem. Well, she died from cancer. She didn't actually die from the cancer. She actually died from the treatment for the cancer.
This was in the US?
In the US. She was American, and my son was born in America, obviously. And
and was it a long time coming? What type of cancer did she have?
She had a rare cancer. We actually went to the Mayo Clinic over in the States to find out, and they said, look, this particular cancer, there's only been about 10 cases in like 10 years. So they really didn't know how to treat it. And it was actually in her lung, in her right lung. And it wasn't lung cancer. Lung cancer from smoking is typically small cell lung cancer. But this was a growth in her lung, and she actually was a keen runner, and she was running like in very cold weather in the States, which gets even colder than here.
Absolutely.
And she spat up a bit of blood. So her doctor suggested she goes to get an X-ray on her lungs, and she'd never had an X-ray on her lungs before, and they found a growth. And initially we thought it was we were hoping it was just a bronchiogenic cyst. We had two opinions, one was cancer, one was a bronchiogenic cyst, so we went with the bronchiogenic cyst. And they had troubles biopsying it to find out whether it actually was cancer. And then, so they monitored it every 6 months. They did they checked her out to see an EKG or a particular type of test to see whether it would grow or not. And then eventually it started growing. So then they said, okay, well, she has to go through 6 weeks of chemo and radiation, and she would lose her hair. And
sorry, how long ago was this?
This was back in 2004.
Okay.
So about 15 years. Yeah, she was really healthy. She was, she was running and doing, looking after our son. And then she went in for the operation on the 20th of January 2005. And it was a pneumonectomy, so they removed her right lung. And she was pretty good for 3 days. And they took the respirator out. And then after 3 days, they put the respirator in. And 2 weeks later, she was dead.
How did you and your son navigate that?
Well, my son was 2, so he was aware, but on an animalistic, a deeper level. But he was fine. And what I did was I made sure I kept the environment consistent. We stayed in the same house. He went to the same daycare. I pretty much was similar, except he just didn't have his mother there. Now I believe he did miss his mother on a deeper level, and he actually got ADHD out of that. He was later on diagnosed with ADHD, but they said because of that, the loss of his mother caused him to, his maturity was, and I believe his ability to focus and concentrate was affected by the loss of his mother. But yeah, it was extremely hard, on me at the time. I really went through a period of time when I wasn't really that concerned about living. But 2-year-olds don't really understand that. They still want you to play with them, do all. I just wanted to bury my head in the sand and pretend like, let the world go by.
I understand it.
But
so, what was the key thing that got you out of that moment, Adam?
Well, really, just I just had to, my commitment was to my son. I so much wanted to have a child, and my commitment was to my son, and really he was probably the main reason why I kept going, because I knew that parent, I wasn't willing to, let other people bring up my son. It's really interesting. My wife, before she passed away, had said, when we used to want to go on a date, we used to have our date. She said, "I don't really want anybody else to bring up our son." And then I think, funnily enough, it's like she was channeled part of, and it's like, no, I need to be there for my son. I probably could have had a nanny and that kind of stuff, but it was like, no, he needs his father. He needs one of his parents. And so, I was actually in a sales engineer at the time in a pressured job in the United States. It's a lot of competition, a lot of pressure to perform because there's a lot of competition, and 2 jobs. I'd maybe work out, get him up, get him ready, get him off to school, and then I'd go straight to work all day, then pick him up, take him back home, and start all over again, feed him, play with him, bath him, whatever. In fact, the weekends was harder than during the week because I had the break to go to work. But on the weekends, it was just like full on. It was just, and I didn't have, she had family, but I didn't have family over there, which was a big factor in why I ended up returning home.
Back to Australia.
So after she died, I think one of the, to go further into what helped me was, in 2005, 2006, I was looking at spending Christmas at home with my son in a cold climate. And as we grew up here in Australia, I'm used to warm Christmases, okay? And I was going to be sitting across, I was imagining myself sitting across from my son with his presents and going, what do we do now? And just, I just I could not deal with that. So I ended up booking a trip home to Australia for 2 weeks. It's because I wanted to be home in the sun, I wanted to be around my family.
Yeah.
And so every year after that, I would go home to my family, swim, enjoy the beautiful beaches here.
Christmas in Australia, there's no better place in the world.
It was great, and that sort of fed into the reason why part of the reason why I came back is because I reconnected with my family, and my parents were getting older. My family, I got 2 brothers and a sister, and I got 2 nephews and a niece, and a brother-in-law and a sister-in-law. They're all within like 15 minutes of each other in Melbourne, and so I just really needed that. I found myself very lonely in America. My son had it great. I set him up really well.
Amazing.
But
how did your son navigate being in a different country and going to school, etc. here?
It was really
his friends.
Yeah. When I asked him, would you like to move to Australia? The first thing he said was no.
No, yeah.
You see, I had set him up in the States. They have these plans in America where there's all these houses built in a group, and there was actually a community swimming pool there. Okay. And
a little commune thing, yeah.
Yeah, like a little commune thing. And basically there was about 8 boys his age within walking distance of our house. So he'd walk out of our house.
Must have been really hard for him.
Yeah. But fortunately he was 10. So, and I knew that if I waited too long, that it would be really, really hard on taking him out on him. And it was really hard bringing him here anyway. He struggled because he had an American accent. He acted like an American. He didn't really, some of the slang in Australia, I don't think he quite understood everything we talked about. He said he liked cricket, but he couldn't understand when the other kids were talking about it, like googly and, silly mid on, all this kind. He didn't really understand the Australian slang around that. And he was kind of sporty, but it sort of, unfortunately, he withdrew from sport and, went into, now he was kind of more into gaming and stuff like that. And so, because a lot of the gaming kids seemed a bit softer soul, he's a soft soul, whereas a lot of the kids who played all the sports weren't quite as soft a soul, I think. So, unfortunately, he withdrew from sports and went into the online, the computer world, which he seems to embrace, yeah.
Adam, we can see that you're a great father, and even just through this journey, I'm sure there's fathers out there that actually took a lot away from that story, and thank you very much for sharing. So obviously you are a web designer, web developer, and you really look at this relationship-based website development. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Yes, I look at it from a position of, well, when I was in the States, I really got a lot of value out of building a relationship with my customers.
Yeah.
Okay. From the website point of view or from the online point of view, it needs to be targeted towards the target audience.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. And to get the value out for the business from the target audience, there needs to be a relationship there. Okay, so first things first, you need to figure out what your target audience.
Right.
Who is the one customer you want through your door? Who's going to spend money? Who's going to stay with you for a long period of time, and then eventually be maybe even your biggest fan, your raving fan.
So like that ideal customer, I think I've heard someone say an avatar. So it's like getting everything about
your ideal customer for your product, your services, your message. Is that right?
That's correct. And then from there, design your online presence.
Yeah.
I've found a lot of owners, they'll build their website based on their thought process.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they're not experts in connection on online.
Yeah.
They know their product, but their customers don't.
Correct. So you need an expert like you. Hey, look, just very, very quickly, for someone out there who, let's say, has a business, they've discovered exactly what their avatar is, what is a website? Like, is there a couple of little tips and tricks that you can teach us in some of the things we need to consider when building a website?
Okay, so from the target audience, you know, the first thing you need to be, for any kind of business, is to be found. Okay, so from the target audience, you can figure out what are they searching online. You know, what are their key phrases. You know, what is their problem. You can learn from their problem what their key phrase is, and that way you can use things like SEO, which is search engine optimization, where you figure out what the keywords are and then use that information when designing the website. Plus, that's not just websites. That's Facebook, Instagram,
Social media,
Twitter, social media, apps,
yeah.
anything, whatever they're searching, whether they're looking at videos.
Right.
But most of the time, not all businesses, they need to channel it through a website to get a sale. Now, this might change over time, but at the moment, that's the majority of the way people sell things. So then you're going to use that information from the target audience to then design the website, make it relate to them, make sure your images relate to them. If you're looking at a target audience over 40, you don't have people under 40 on your website, because they're going to go, oh, they're 20. That's not for me. You have to make sure you have their problem specifically written. You know, if you want to lose weight, do you want to lose weight?
Great.
We help you lose weight.
You lose weight. So be really specific, really bold, yeah.
Really specific on their images, and then the content. What are they interested in reading about to connect with you on it, so they know that you know what you're talking about? Because it's a know, like, and trust. If they get to know, like, and trust you, then there's a bigger chance that they're going to do business with you.
Great formula. Adam, what's next for you?
What's next for me? I'm looking to develop my business further. Looking at how I can bring all this information to my business, whether it be one-to-one or one-to-many.
Right. So
that's what I intend to do.
Would you also mind if I ask, what's your son doing now?
What's my son doing now?
So how old is he? He's
16.
16? Yeah.
Well, he's doing VCAL in Melbourne, which is kind of like
vocational,
that. Yeah, vocational. He actually wants to do 3D development of characters in game design.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it's interesting because as a father, he never wants to do what I do. You know, I like doing this, and this.
Come and help me create websites.
Yeah, no. And then he was gonna join a intern as a website developer. I'm going, wait a second, you could have come to work with me. And he says, no. And he's sort of like, he knows all about web savvy and all this kind of stuff. And go, well, you might know a lot, but I know a bit.
Adam, again, thank you so much for sharing us about fatherhood and your son, etc. during this interview. And I'm really glad you came here in the studios. But look, just before you go, we actually have a bit of a challenge that we ask all of our guests. And the challenge is 10 questions in 60-second challenge. So, Adam Luckin, do you accept the challenge?
Yes, I do.
All right, Adam, your time starts now. Favourite colour?
Red.
Red. Favourite food?
Indian.
Oh,
very good.
Yeah. Favourite celebrity?
Roger Federer.
Great. Favourite actor?
Hugh Jackman.
He's a good Australian actor. Favourite professional speaker?
Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Wayne Dyer is awesome. Favourite book?
I'd say You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
Yeah, Louise Hay. Favourite movie?
Princess Bride.
Favourite drink?
Kombucha.
Really?
Yeah.
Favourite city?
Paris.
And favourite pizza topping?
Mushrooms and olives.
Oh, all the way. I do agree with that. And Adam Luckin, if you could be an animal, which animal would you be?
I'd be an eagle.
Why is that?
Because they soar, and I want to soar in my life.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Celebrity Authority Show.
The next speaker is a personal development coach and entrepreneur. As a survivor of abuse and abandonment, she is passionate about helping people to take control of their lives through total mindset transformation. Her mission is to influence and empower men and women to achieve a constant and unstoppable higher expression of life and love. Today, she will share with us a snapshot of her journey to her own transformation, a story that depicts how to be unstoppable. To show you the future of story showing, please welcome to the stage Grace Harris.
At the age of 5 and before she could read, my daughter had won her very first classroom public speaking contest. It wasn't quite a 60-second elevator pitch, but a story of our Melbourne holiday, which she had learned to tell by using only the emotional power of her memory. How many of us have childhood memories that are so vivid, it seems like only yesterday when you think about it? At the age of 5 and before I could read, the most vivid memory I have is when my mother deserted me. One day she took me for a visit to my grandmother's house, and as soon as we arrived, she left and promised to come back. I waited all day outside my grandmother's house, but when the sun began to set and darkness fell, I realized she was never coming back for me. The very next day, I was being trained by my grandmother to fetch water from the metal pump, wash clothes using my bare hands, hours of hard manual labor. I was so young and grieving for the loss of my mother and my real home, confused and scared. Then I heard my grandmother's high-pitched voice talking down to me. "It's hard, isn't it? Get on with it. Hurry up." Her voice stabbed me in the chest as I tried to do the best work I could, sitting in that small step. Suddenly, I felt myself move up and away from where I was. It felt so odd. So I turned and looked back, and there, I saw myself, a young child with her head down, heart convulsing with sorrow, ferociously holding back tears. That moment, at the age of 5, I had my first out-of-body experience, born from extreme mental and emotional shock. Have you ever had a moment in your life when the pain was so great, it was unbearable? Have you ever had your heart so broken that you couldn't feel anything? In 2015, research by Pegasus Economics states that if the impacts of child abuse, including sexual, physical, and emotional, on an estimated 3.7 million adult Australians are properly addressed, the combined budget position of the government could be improved by a minimum of $6.8 billion on a yearly basis. On a more intimate scale, I am here to beg you the question: could you be living in a state of stunted abundance by holding on to your past stories and allowing the self-destroying beliefs that people have injected in your innocent and vulnerable state? I went on to raise myself in my grandmother's house, surrounded in an environment filled with alcohol and drug abuse. As a small child, I used to listen to the song Romeo and Juliet by Dire Straits in the kitchen, watching my uncles drink and smoke pot. I was 7 years old and so high from secondhand smoke that if you played that same song right now, I would be high as a kite again. So my upbringing rendered a cycle of self-sabotage, which I subjected my own life to. For over 3 decades, I locked myself up as a prisoner and as a victim, so fixated on the wrong idea about relationships that I unconsciously indulged myself, not once, but twice, in domestic relationships that were so vicious, even I could not explain where some of my injuries came from. One day, lying on a hospital bed, I was about to go in for a shoulder surgery. The doctor and I were having small talk. I remember pleading with him, "Please take care of me. I want to be here for my children." And I began to cry as they put me under anesthesia. Hours passed, and I find myself in and out of consciousness. I could hear people's frantic voices around me, screaming, running. The images were fuzzy, and then total darkness. When I finally opened my eyes, I began to cough, and I choked, blood sputtering out of my throat. It was a mess. I almost died on the operating table from overdose of anesthesia because the doctor decided to give me just a little bit more, as I was so highly strung before surgery. Having survived that near-death experience, I began to look for the answers from within and took a good look at myself. I was simply so tired from fighting my inner battles. On one hand, I exposed my demons to not only be toxic, more than anything, those demons were predictable and redundant. On the other hand, I recognized my future, a future so bright and so daring. I could clearly see the price I needed to pay for it. The price of total, unapologetic, fearless self-love. I began by shifting my beliefs to accepting that I am the absolute supreme authority of how I can experience my life. I removed people, places, thoughts, experiences that did not serve my future, and spent the last 6 years changing the landscape of my life. It is now barely recognizable. What a beautiful and liberating experience. 3 years ago, I finally got it right and met the man of my dreams. 15 months ago, I left my corporate career to become an entrepreneur in this amazing personal development space. And in a span of 12 months, I was recognized as one of the leading business coaches in my field. And my children have never been happier to see their mommy always laughing and smiling. In your life, you are the creator of your own destiny, no matter what. You are the hero that you have been waiting for, no matter what. The answers to your questions are within you, no matter what. No one else will be able to conjure the silver lining but yourself, no matter what. My question to you is this: are you willing to expose your demons so that you can unearth the greatness of your spirit? Are you willing to confront yourself so you can recognize the power that lives inside your pain? Are you big enough to exonerate yourself from years of self-sabotage so you can begin to celebrate the beauty and the strength inside of you? Are you willing to show up unapologetic, fearless, and unstoppable? Thank you.
Hi guys, how you going? Sam Cawthorne here, and for those people that don't know, I'm the CEO and founder of both Speakers Institute and Speakers Tribe. And every single month we put together this curriculum video for our Speakers Tribe all around the world. We currently run Speakers Tribe in 5 different regions all throughout the world, and obviously being founded here in Australia. We are super excited about what's possible when you lean into a community that really wants to help you to make a difference in the world. So we are super excited about the future of where we are heading. And for those people that haven't registered into Speakers Tribe Conference, I cannot encourage you enough. This is our premier event every single year where we assemble some of the greatest thought leaders and futurists of our day and bring them in to come and share their knowledge and their secret ingredients in our one annual event. So today's curriculum video is all about process. And as many of you guys know, as a thought leader, as an expert, as someone that really wants to make a difference in the world, you have been through experiences for a reason. And these experiences, and through these experiences, you've developed your own intellectual property. And so today's curriculum video is about process. How can you teach other people the process in order for them to catch what you have already caught? And so this is part of your own intellectual property. This is your content. And ultimately, as you develop your content, you can then position yourself as a real go-to authority, as a thought leader, as an expert in the marketplace. So people can come along and listen to your valuable advice and your opinion because you have intellectual property around that. So today's conversation is going to be more around your teachable framework. And so as you develop your own teachable framework, and a lot of this part is around the visual representation of your teachable framework, and if you can teach other people what you've caught all throughout your experiences so they can catch it, ultimately then you're actually then known as someone that's produced some amazing content. So we're going to teach you a framework which is all around how to create and design your own IP, your own teachable framework around your intellectual property. So as you can see there, here's our model. And in this model here, you've got outcome, catch what you've already caught. And so I'm going to show you our teachable frameworks for you to create your own teachable framework. So the very first element is this, as you can see, is gather. So gather is all about gathering everything that you know, whether it's all your problems, all the ideas, all the research, all the stories, but it's about doing a massive dump. And so we're calling this a verbal vomit of everything you have. One thing I found when it does come to creating your own intellectual property is it is about literally just starting afresh. So dumping everything that you know around a certain area, around a certain topic, just dumping it all out. And then once you've done that, the second thing is defining. And this is around defining how many steps. So now that you've done this massive dump, how many individual steps is it? And this is about creating like a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, or maybe it's in the design of a pyramid, or maybe it's in the design of a Venn diagram, or maybe it's in the design of a cycle, or maybe it's more chronological, step 1, step 2, step 3. So define, first of all, how many steps, so I can catch what you've already caught in your teachable framework. Once you've defined how many steps it is, the third element here is experiment. So experiment is all around the visual appearance and really refine exactly what this visual appearance is. And as I was saying, it could be a Venn diagram. It could be a cycle. It could be a chronological step-by-step. It could be a pyramid. So it totally just depends what exactly is the visual framework of your IP model. And then the fourth area here is testing it. Does it work? Does it work both one-to-one, one-to-many? Does it work both macro and micro? Does it work for corporates, for individuals, for couples, for relationships, for young people, for old people? Does your teachable framework work? So in most cases, as you can see, you've got our cycle. Maybe your visual framework could be something different, and ultimately you've been through your experiences for a reason, and through that experiences you've learned something. Teach us what you've learned. Give us a tangible step-by-step guidance on how you've already caught. And one thing in life is that make your IP easily catchable, then people will lean in more to what you have to say, and ultimately people will lean in more to, your next piece of IP, or even take out your selling. Guys, I really hope that curriculum video gave you value. And again, please, can I encourage you to lean into your own speakers. And I really want to acknowledge our amazing leaders that are there with you guys. These leaders do phenomenal work, and huge acknowledgement to you all, and really looking forward to seeing your journey go from where it is today to where you really want to be. And I have found all throughout my life that the greatest way to grow is by upgrading your proximity, which is exactly what we do here at Speakers Tribe. So certainly really excited about what's possible in your next steps, and always remember that the best is yet to come. We'll see you soon.
I basically decided one day that I never wanted to work for anyone else ever again. And whilst I was plodding along, like working and doing my massage therapy, and I was doing my guided meditation and teaching, I realised that I needed some guidance because my goals were so important to me. And I realised that when I actually made that investment, it was like I was making a commitment to myself. I was basically telling myself that I believed in myself that much, that I knew I was great. A huge step for me to actually give myself that assurance, to give myself that commitment. I never committed to myself. Commitment was a scary thing, but I knew deep down, like I believed in myself on some level. But to have coaches, to have a team, to have a community, and to have support of inspiring people, mentors, teachers around me that believed in me, like in ways that I hadn't quite believed in myself, that was a brand new thing to me. And it was kind of scary. It was intimidating and confronting, because I really had to start to raise my standards about how I related to myself, how I believed in myself, and what I believed to be possible for myself. So I started going fast-tracked transformation. I've launched my speaking career, and I've started speaking. I've launched my professional speaking website. I've got an amazing new network of allies, of friends, coaches and mentors, and I have a whole new community that I'm a part of, and my new career is just taking off at the moment. And Yeah, it's an amazing, exciting time, and I feel like there's no obstacles in my path. Like every goal, I'm just smashing through every goal, and I'm literally unstoppable right now.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode here at Speakers TV. My name is Sam Cawthorne, and we are super excited about Speakers TV and about these episodes that we bring to you every single weekday, as well as also on every single Saturday. Guys, we'd love to hear from you. If you've got any feedback at all for us, or maybe you want to comment right now in the chat bar about what was your biggest takeaway from today's session. But also not only that, why don't you join us? So here at Speakers Institute, we do have a number of programs such as our online boot camps or our protege program. At Speakers Tribe here, we're all about running these big, large annual conferences every year, but also not only that, there is an annual membership that you can get where in your city we do have tribe gatherings, all really encouraging you going from where you are today to where you really want to be. Or maybe you want to tell your friends and your family about Speakers TV. But can I please encourage you, why don't you like this page? Why don't you join us each day? Why don't you tell other people about these episodes? Because we are all about really helping you on this journey to become, for you to find your message and your story and get that out there into the world. We are super excited about your journey, so please lean in and join us today. To your success, my name is Sam Cawthorne, and don't forget, the best is yet